Hi, this is Tanisha from the Grapevine, about to give you the scoop that you're going to hear through the Grapevine. I'm here today at the beautiful running Hare Vineyard with Barb Scarborough, owner and winemaker also, or just owner?
No, my husband's the winemaker.
Okay. And Barb's going to tell us a little bit about the winery. You were just telling me how you got started. This was supposed to be a hunting property?
Yes, my husband bought the property in 2000 as a hunting property. And it basically was a hobby that got way out of control. He planted the first vines right behind us back in 2003, about 100 vines. This is our Cayuga Whites back here.
Okay.
And he planted them to see if he could A, grow the grapes, and B, make a product that we could actually drink. And he did. And then we planted more and more, and then we basically, about 3 years ago, got to a point where we went from producing 80 gallons of juice 800 gallons of juice in one growing season when we harvested.
Wow.
And so we either were going to have to make a decision. We were way over the federal limit of what you can produce for personal consumption. And that's when we decided to go commercial and open our winery, which was 2 years ago this month.
Not bad for 2 years.
Yeah, we now have 8 acres worth of vineyards. We have 4 different varieties. Our whites are behind us, like I said, the Cayuga. And over here our reds are our Scarborough, which we make our international award-winning wine from, our dessert wine. And we have Cab Franc and Cab Sauvignon as our red grapes.
And what made you decide upon those grapes?
Well, my husband's the winemaker, like I said, and his philosophy is we'll grow the grapes that grow well in this climate, living in Maryland, in this soil. And the varieties that we're growing do very well here. We also import grapes that won't grow well here. So basically we want to have the best grape to make the wine we're trying to produce. So we'll grow what we can grow well, otherwise we will import grapes from all over the world.
The ones that you import, do you use those as single varietals as well, or do you use those in blends?
Actually, aside from the Scarborough, which is our dessert wine, which is 100% Scarborough, we use the other 2 reds for blending.
Okay.
But the varietals we bring in, for example, are Malbec. You can't grow a good Malbec grape here. Chile and Argentina grow the best Malbec grape.
You import some grapes, and so you import Malbec.
We import our Malbec, which won the international silver medal last year in the San Francisco wine competition. And we also import our Shiraz. Our Shiraz is also from Chile.
Okay.
And we just released our first release of Shiraz. And our Sangiovese we bring in from the Piedmont region of Italy.
Okay.
So these are grapes you're not going to grow a good Malbec or Shiraz here. And that's why we do it. So we grow what we can grow well.
And now as far as entering in competitions, which ones do you consider like your best of the best that you usually send off?
Well, my husband likes to compete with the big boys because he wants to compete internationally.
Okay.
So we do compete regionally in the state of Maryland. Our Sangiovese won the gold last year in the Governor's Cup, but he wants to compete against international wineries as well. So, for example, we're sort of known for our Pinot Grigio because it's the first wine that we won an international gold for. So our Pinot has now won 2 international golds. Our Chardonnay's won an international gold. Our Malbec's won an international silver. And while we've won multiple awards regionally for our wine, you know, that's a step. It's playing in a bigger playground, so to speak.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Well, you have a lot of accolades. That's very good for you to have just been making wine for 2 years?
Yep, 2 years.
Not bad at all. There was a lot of snow and a lot of adverse weather conditions this past year. So how will that affect your harvest?
What I can say is our grapes this year have never looked better. And quite honestly, when the snow and all that's happening in the winter, the grapevine is dormant. It's just a bare stick, it's dormant. And typically, not so much for the snow, but I know with the rain, we've had pretty much a drought summer. The grapes like that. They're basically a weed. So the worse the soil, the worse the condition, the drier the conditions, the sweeter the grape.
And the humidity and the 90-degree days.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the grapes look fantastic. They've never looked better.
Well, since we just mentioned the grapes, let's go take a closer look at some of the grapes.
This is a beautiful cluster. And so what we do, because harvest, these will be ready in the next maybe 2.5 weeks. But how we test to see if they're ready is we actually check the Brix, which is the sugar level. And so once it's at a level that is the sweetness we want it to be for our wine, then we harvest.
Okay. So in a few short weeks, we'll be harvesting, putting them in. Now these, do you do stainless steel? Do you do oak barrel fermentation?
Well, when we harvest, first of all, the white grapes will be ready before the red grapes. So it's usually about a week to 10 days difference. And then for harvest, we actually do by volunteer. We put an email out, it's on the website, and we invite the public to come and help actually harvest the grapes.
Okay, so we're standing here amongst the Chambertin grapes at Hare Vineyard, and we were just talking about that we have about 2.5 more weeks before we go to harvest.
Yes, we'll probably harvest the white grapes first, typically, and then we'll harvest the red grapes about a week, 10 days after.
Okay. Now, when measuring the level of sweetness, do you do that by just a quick taste test, or do you have the tools?
There's a tool, I believe it's called a refractometer, and it's about this big, and what they do is you take a couple different samples from different bunches, and then you squeeze the juice into the little machine so that it can register the level of sugar.
Okay.
They call it Brix in winemaking. And so my husband knows, whatever the number is, once we get to that number, then they're ready to be picked.
Okay. Can we do a quick taste test?
Absolutely.
See what they taste like right now?
Absolutely.
Let's get a little sample here.
Now there is seeds, I'm warning you.
Yep, I got one. Very sweet though.
They're tasting sweet. I mean, I would eat these just because I think they're sweet, but for the winemaking process, they're not sweet enough. And again, we use the Chambertin grapes for our dessert wine.
Okay. And to think, in a few months, this will be in a bottle on a shelf?
Oh no, not a few months. The Chambertin, now you're getting into the winemaking questions, and my husband's the winemaker, but the typical process, whenever we harvest is they go into the crusher to stemmer, then they go into initially the stainless steel tanks to start the fermentation process.
Okay.
And then depending on which wine we're making, some will go into French oak, some into American oak, some stay in stainless steel. So think of it like cooking. It's like a recipe, depending on which wine that they're making. There's a certain protocol and sort of recipe, if you will, that dictates where the juice ends up.
Now, with these being the Chambertin grapes, do you use oak barrels for these, or do you for aging purposes?
It's either American oak or French oak.
Okay. So about when can we look for this particular, like this grape that I ate? When can we? Do you have about a time frame?
We're probably about 2 years out, 1.5 to 2 years out.
Okay.
This one has to stay in the barrels for a while.
So if we want to look for Chambertin now, we're looking for 2008?
Yes, exactly right, 2008.
So be sure to look for the 2008 Chambertin. Since this purchase started as a hunting property, how much did you actually know about the winemaking and growing vines and that kind of thing beforehand?
Well, the joke is that, as I said earlier, it's a hobby that got out of control. My husband is a finance and economics major by trade who did everything he could to avoid chemistry in college. So now what does he do for fun? Now he has a vineyard. So he did a lot of reading.
Okay.
He's very, very bright. He did a lot of reading, and so that's how he initially started and planted the first 100 vines. We do have a wine consultant that has taught my husband the chemistry side of the winemaking. And it's a learning experience.